We'll hop over to the East, which I think is, obviously as Knicks fans, we get a little more excited to debate here. But numbers 1 and 2, I call me, I don't know. I really want to give the Bucks that number 1 spot rather than the 2 where they're put instead of the Nets and give a little flip flop there. Just because those guys, obviously the Nets were not completely healthy, but just because the Bucks are reigning champs and they did take them down in the series. So I want to give the Bucks 1 and the Nets 2, but I'm very open to hear what you guys think about that.
Well, I think if we use the same reasoning that we did back in the West, or at least that the author of the NBA.com article did, that, whoever came out of the West was number 1. Yes, the Bucks would, they would be the same in the East. But I think that the talent gap between the Nets and the Bucks, yes, the Bucks won, but I was at a couple of those games. I know Alex, our producer, was at a couple of the games as well. The Nets won the first 2 games of the series, and that game 2, they won by nearly 50 points. There was no James Harden at that point. It was just Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And it seemed like, okay, like if they have 2 out of the 3 and they're winning by this much, it shouldn't be close. They go to Milwaukee, Kyrie gets hurt. Okay, we come back to Brooklyn for game 5. Kevin Durant has this historic nearly 50-point performance. You feel good again, but James Harden was hurt. And the problem with that is he comes back playing on one leg, and these guys, aside from Kevin Durant, are not 100%. So if you think next season, you have all 3 of those guys at 100%, I don't even think the series is close. I think it's a 5-game Brooklyn gentleman sweep there. I really do. And I know the Bucks are reigning champs, and you want to send all the respect to Giannis for what he's done, and he's earned it. I don't want to put an asterisk on this championship like a lot of people like to do for the 2020 ring. Oh, it's in the bubble, or last year it's injuries. No, they won it. They earned it fair and square. But if the Nets come back healthy this year, I just don't see anybody standing in their way.
I couldn't agree with you more, Bridge, especially on that point that you harped upon. The talent for the Nets is so unbelievably better than the Bucks, and we all know this. The Bucks actually just added Grayson Allen and George Hill, who will make nice role players, but the Nets have just picked up Patty Mills, and more importantly, 4 more years of Kevin Durant. So this number 1 offense in the league is not slowing down anytime soon. It's a well-oiled machine that has a lot of injuries, but we do have the time for them to be fixed. So basically, if everyone stays healthy, I know this is just classic Nets talk for the past year. If everybody stays healthy, they're going to win the championship. But honestly, these guys are top of the top players in the league. So if they are all healthy, this is something. It's going to be a bloodbath.
Okay, I could accept that. I really think it could go both ways, and I'm happy that we have this discussion. But this is the one, guys, where we all, no question about it, the Atlanta Hawks should not be in that 3rd spot. I get it; they had a miraculous playoff run, but where they could even think that they're the 3 seed is mind-boggling to me. I still think Philly deserves that spot. I don't care what drama's going on with Ben Simmons, but the Sixers there, I think, deserve the 3 spot easily, especially because if they do make a trade for Simmons, they're obviously going to get something in return. But the 3 spot, I think, should easily be the Sixers. And then obviously we could even compete too. Should the Hawks be 4 or 5 ahead of the Knicks? Do they really deserve that? Or even the Heat, who have revamped? So guys, if you got to fill out that middle of the East, who you got?
I think, I think from the perspective of a Knicks fan, seeing the Hawks up at 3, it just makes you cringe a little bit. It's like, are you serious? Because look, going into the playoffs, the Hawks, they were the 5 seed, but I don't think a lot of people talked about them as a true playoff threat throughout the regular season last year. They come in and they go on that, they come out guns blazing. They beat the Knicks in 5 games, which I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I think a lot of people said the series could go either way, but for the Hawks to win so handily, very easily, I don't think a lot of people saw that. But I think even the bigger surprise was, okay, well, whoever wins that Knicks-Hawks series, Philadelphia will take care of them. And that didn't happen. The Hawks managed to beat the Sixers. But to your point, Nick, I think the Sixers are still the more complete team. No matter what they do with Simmons, like you said, they'll get something back for him. I think they're a better coach team. I don't care what you say about Doc Rivers. I still think he is a solid NBA coach. I know it's been a while since he's really won, but I think to have a guy like that, in your locker room and on the sidelines, I think that's it's just really important. So for me, if I want to fill out the middle of the East, so we already have Nets 1, Bucks 2, throw the Sixers at 3. I'll go Hawks 4, Knicks 5, and Heat 6. And I'll briefly explain why. I think you still put the Hawks over the Knicks because of how easily they were able to beat them last year, as much as it hurts. I think that, you look at it like that. But, the Knicks are going to come back. Some of their players didn't perform so well in the playoffs. Maybe that was just, first time young guys. We'll see how they do this season. And I know the Heat made a really great run back in the bubble. And they sort of, it was a bit of a slump last season. I'm putting them at 6 for now, but they did make some great acquisitions. I think Jimmy Butler's still a great player. So as a preseason ranking, they're at 6, but I could see them going up as high as 3.
Understandable. So I'm gonna have to agree with you on that Sixers take. I'd definitely put them at the number 3 spot, the number 2 defensive team in the league. I mean, they're great, but this whole underlying issue, just like with the Mets and stuff, it's all in the mind. And we got Ben Simmons, and it's going on with the media and everything. So we're not really going to be sure what's going to happen to him. I know that I just heard recently that he isn't going to show up to training camp. So that could pose real problems for them. But they actually just added Andre Drummond over this offseason. So that could be a huge game changer for them and how things are going to run. And also you got to watch out for Tyrese Maxey and Matisse Thybulle. Those 2 young guys, they could play. They could really, really shoot the ball, and they're very well adjusted into the NBA. They know where they are, and they know their place too. So I'm going to put the Sixers at the 3, and then at the 4, I have the Heat. I think the Heat are very underrated. 40-32 last year, nothing crazy, but they just added Kyle Lowry, Markieff Morris, and PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker being a champion, so that adds a lot of depth to their veteran kind of duo. But they also have Adebayo, of course, Duncan Robinson, who can shoot the ball, and we got also Tyler Herro. If he decides to actually show up this year, that'll be nice. And always trust in Oladipo, and you don't have to think he's going to have a great season, but you can't count him out. So that's who I got. I got the Heat at the 4, and then I'll put the Hawks at the 5, and then my Knicks at the 6. I got to be fair. We got the number 4 defensive rating in the league, and we just got Kemba and Fournier, but we are the Knicks. So,
Yeah, I could get behind that list. Well, you kind of took the words out of my mouth there. I think Miami is better than most people give them credit for, and they will have a better season, I think. And the Hawks deserve to be above the Knicks. They beat them. It's that simple. But then if you look, guys, towards the bottom of the East, 7 and 8, I agree with this. Kind of no doubt, really. It's the Celtics at 7, who I think they could climb their way up, depending on how Dennis Schroeder works with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown when he's healthy. They obviously lost Kemba and Evan Fournier, but it'll be interesting to see how that team works. And then I think one of the most exciting teams next season will be the Chicago Bulls, who I think can get this 8 seed. They added Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and they didn't really lose much. So I'm excited to see those 2 teams. I would personally leave it at that. And then the one team I think could really still, I think is a little underrated on this list, is the Charlotte Hornets at 12. They made the play-in. They had a chance to win. Obviously, the game did not go their way, but it was a nice change to see a young team who had struggled for a lot of years finally start to build and make something. I think Gordon Hayward's healthy. LaMelo Ball will get better. Kelly Oubre is a good addition. James Bouknight could be a good scorer off the bench. I think that team should have a little better odds kind of making their way potentially to a play-in again if it's there. I don't know if the 8 seed is really realistic, but I think that team has a chance to do something in this Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I agree with some of what you said, and I'll be brief. I know we're running out of time here. This has been an awesome segment. Celtics at 7, I do agree with that because they've had these young guys, Tatum and Brown, for I think 4 or 5 years now. It's been a long time, which is hard to believe, and they just keep getting better. Tatum is really, really good, and I think I know they didn't make a lot of huge acquisitions this offseason. They got Al Horford back, which is, he's a great defensive player, and he's just a great locker room guy too. So I like them at 7, and then the Bulls at 8. They made some great pickups. I think you got to love that, especially for Chicago, who they haven't had. I know they had a couple of great, years with Rose, but since Michael Jordan, it hasn't been that kind to them. So, and then with the Hornets, I do think they're a bit lower than they should be. I think for the reasons that you stated.
Will, you got any final thoughts there?
I like the Hornets talk. I think James Boatnight is very talented, and obviously LaMelo Ball and all them. But I don't know. It's going to be a crazy year for the East. You got a lot of teams who are just building themselves up, and there's a lot of potential for them to take over. But it's anybody's kind of conference besides the Nets, of course. Like I said before, their talent is so ridiculous. But yeah, that's all, Nick.